Opening. My dear friends, I invite you to pause for a moment, breathe deeply, and truly listen. In this life, we often find ourselves rushing, chasing after money, as if it were the one key that could unlock lasting happiness. Society tells us, if you earn more, if you buy more, if you have more, then finally, you'll be happy. And so, we run. We run faster, we work harder, we sacrifice our peace of mind, all in the hope that somewhere down this path, joy will be waiting. But let me ask you, have you ever noticed that the more you chase, the more empty you sometimes feel? The moment you get the raise, the promotion, or the bigger house, there's a strange silence afterward. Instead of fulfillment, there's an echoing question, is this all? And when you finally hold what you longed for in your hands, fear creeps in, the fear of losing it, the anxiety that it might not last. Why does this happen? It's not because money itself is evil. Money is simply a tool, a neutral form of energy. It can buy food, shelter, comfort, even opportunities. But the root of our suffering lies not in money, it lies in craving, in the endless thirst of desire that whispers, more, more, more. This craving, or what the Buddha called tan, is like fire. No matter how much fuel you give it, it burns hotter. It is never satisfied. And so, even when we reach one goal, we instantly create another. Even when we possess more than enough, we convince ourselves it's still not enough. The cycle continues, and happiness always seems just out of reach, like a horizon that moves farther away the closer we walk toward it. Think about it. How many times in your life have you said, I'll be happy when I buy that car, when I pay off the house, when I finally retire? And when that moment came, was happiness permanent? Or did the mind quickly find something else to chase? This is the trap of desire. It makes us believe fulfillment exists in the next thing, while robbing us of the peace available in this very moment. We spend so much of our lives in pursuit that we forget to live. But what if happiness isn't found in the next paycheck, the next purchase, or the next achievement? What if happiness is already here, waiting quietly beneath the noise of craving? Imagine sitting at a simple meal, nothing extravagant, just warm bread and a bowl of soup. If your heart is free from craving, that meal feels complete. But if the mind is consumed with longing, I wish I had something better, something more luxurious, then even the finest banquet will taste bitter. So, my friends, the real question is not, how can I make more money, but rather, how can I free myself from the endless thirst that money alone can never quench? Because until we understand this truth, we will keep running in circles, achieving, consuming, comparing, while happiness slips further from our grasp. As we begin this journey together, let us look deeply into the nature of craving and suffering. Let us see why the world convinces us to chase, and why, even when we catch what we run after, we are still not at peace. Stay with me, for this exploration is not about rejecting money, but about discovering the freedom that comes when our happiness is no longer chained to it. Suffering arises from craving. Let's take a closer look at the real source of our suffering. Many people believe the problem is money itself, that if money didn't exist, life would be simpler, maybe even happier. But money isn't the root of our pain. The truth is more subtle, and also more powerful. Suffering doesn't come from money, it comes from craving. Think of craving as a fire inside the mind. The Buddha once described desire as a flame that never stops burning. And the more fuel you give it, through possessions, achievements, or wealth, the higher and hungrier that fire grows. This is why even billionaires sometimes confess to feeling empty. They've added wood to the fire all their lives, yet the blaze never dies down. Have you ever noticed this in your own life? Maybe you saved for months to buy something you really wanted, a new phone, a dream vacation, or a car. In the days leading up to it, the excitement was almost unbearable. You thought, once I have it, I'll be satisfied. And then you got it, and within weeks, sometimes even days, the thrill was gone. The mind quickly found something else to long for. That, my friends, is craving at work. This endless thirst is what makes life feel exhausting. We tell ourselves, just a little more, and I'll finally rest. But that little more never arrives. It's like trying to fill a cup that has no bottom. The more you pour, the more it leaks away. What makes craving even trickier is that society often celebrates it. We are told that ambition is everything, that wanting more is a sign of success. Commercials, social media, even casual conversations, everything whispers, you're not enough until you buy this, achieve that, or look like them. The cycle is carefully designed to keep us restless. But here's the liberating truth: craving is optional. The fire burns only as long as we keep feeding it. When we pause, when we step back and ask, do I really need this to be happy? Something powerful happens. We begin to see that money and possessions are tools, not masters. They can serve us, but they cannot complete us. Let me share a perspective. I once met a man who had very little. His home was modest, his clothes were simple, and his meals were plain. Yet when he smiled, there was a peace and contentment that no millionaire I've met could rival. I asked him how he managed to stay so joyful despite having so little. He said, I don't crave more than what is needed. Because of that, what I have feels like enough. That answer struck me like lightning. His joy didn't come from the absence of money, but from the absence of endless desire. So maybe the real question we should ask ourselves isn't, how can I earn more? But when will I feel that I have enough? Imagine what would change in your life if you shifted that focus. How much anxiety, comparison, and exhaustion would dissolve if you no longer let craving dictate your peace. Craving is the root of suffering, but awareness is the first step to freedom. The moment you recognize that the flame is burning, you can choose not to add more wood. You can choose to breathe, to notice the present moment, and to discover that happiness isn't hidden in the next thing, it's waiting here, in the quiet space beyond desire. Money is like a shadow. Let me share with you a simple image. Money is like a shadow. When you run after your own shadow, what happens? It keeps moving away, just out of reach. The faster you chase it, the faster it slips ahead of you. But when you stand still, when you stop obsessing over it, the shadow naturally falls into place behind you. This is how money behaves in our lives. The more we desperately chase it, the more it feels like it's never enough, like it's always escaping our grasp. But when we shift our focus, when we live with integrity, purpose, and balance, money tends to follow naturally. Think about people you know. Maybe you've seen someone who constantly hustles, working endless hours, stressed and exhausted, yet no matter how much they earn, they never feel secure. Money runs ahead of them like a shadow they cannot catch. On the other hand, there are people who live with clarity and intention. They do good work, they nurture relationships, they give value to others, and somehow, money flows to them without being the center of their lives. Why is this so? Because when we chase money out of fear or greed, we give it power over us. Our decisions become reactive. We choose jobs we don't love, stay in relationships that don't nourish us, or compromise our health and values, all just to keep running after that shadow. And yet, peace never arrives. But when we treat money as a companion rather than a master, the story changes. Instead of chasing, we attract. Instead of running, we walk steadily. Money begins to serve us, instead of us serving it. Here's a reflection. Have you ever noticed that the times you were most anxious about money, it seemed hardest to come by? And yet, when you felt calm, creative, and focused on doing something meaningful, opportunities appeared almost effortlessly. That's the nature of the shadow. The more frantic your chase, the more it eludes you. The more grounded you are, the more it quietly follows. I once knew a man who spent years in relentless pursuit of wealth. He had a good income, but his heart was restless. He constantly worried, what if I lose it? What if it's not enough? No matter how much he earned, he felt poor inside. Later in life, he shifted his focus. Instead of chasing money, he invested his energy in building a life of meaning, spending time with family, helping others, and doing work he genuinely loved. Money didn't disappear, it followed him more naturally than before. But now it was no longer his shadow master, it was simply his shadow friend. So let me ask you, are you running after the shadow, or are you letting it follow? Are you giving money the power to control your peace? Or are you choosing to live in such a way that peace comes first and money naturally finds its place? This is not about rejecting money, or pretending it doesn't matter. Of course, we need it to live. But the key is to see it for what it really is. A shadow of the life we create, not the light itself. The light comes from living with wisdom, compassion, and purpose. When we stand in that light, money falls into place, just like the shadow that walks behind us. The trap of the more you have, the more you want. Let's talk about a trap so subtle, yet so powerful, that almost everyone falls into it at some point, the illusion that more will finally be enough. We think, if I can just get a little more, I'll be satisfied. Someone with $1 dreams of having 10. The one with 10 longs for 100. And the one with 100 begins eyeing 1,000. It never ends. The more we gain, the more the mind expands its horizon of desire. It's like pouring water into a bucket with no bottom. No matter how much you pour, it will never be full. Have you noticed this in your own life? Think back to a time when you reached a goal you once thought was everything. Maybe it was buying your first car, landing a better job, or saving a certain amount of money. At the time, it felt huge. But once you achieved it, how long did that satisfaction last? Soon, the mind whispered, "What's next? What else can I get?" That whisper is the trap. Psychologists today call it the hedonic treadmill. The idea is simple: we adapt quickly to new levels of comfort or success, and then we start craving more. A bigger house, a newer phone, a higher salary. But the treadmill never stops. It keeps us running in place, sweating harder, yet never moving closer to true happiness. Here's a story. I once met a man who grew up in poverty. When he finally became successful, he swore he'd never go hungry again. At first, every dollar felt like a blessing. But as the years passed, the numbers in his bank account grew, and so did his restlessness. He confessed, "I thought once I reached $1 million, I'd relax. But now that I'm here, I feel poorer than ever, because I'm afraid someone else will take it away or surpass me." That is the cruel irony of craving. The more we feed it, the hungrier it becomes. And this doesn't apply only to money. It happens with recognition, relationships, even personal achievements. We keep raising the bar, believing happiness is just beyond the next goal. But when we get there, happiness slips through our fingers, and we set a new target. It's a cycle without end. So what's the way out? The answer is not in rejecting success or wealth, but in shifting our perspective. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" we might ask, "When will I feel that I have enough?" Imagine what would happen if, just for today, you chose to appreciate what you already have. If you looked at your home, your body, your loved ones, and whispered, "This is enough. I am enough." How much lighter would your heart feel? The truth is, satisfaction doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from contentment. A person with little but a grateful heart can feel richer than a billionaire with endless cravings. The trap of the more you have, the more you want loses its power when we step off the treadmill and simply rest in the present. So, let me leave you with a question. Are you still running on the treadmill of desire, or are you ready to pause, breathe, and find joy in the simple fact that life is already full, right here, right now? Comparison and envy. There's a quiet thief of happiness that many of us invite into our lives without even noticing. It's not money itself, nor is it failure, it's comparison. The moment we measure our worth against someone else's life, envy begins to creep in. And where envy lives, peace cannot stay. Have you ever caught yourself scrolling through social media, looking at someone else's house, their vacation, their new car, and thought, why don't I have that? In that instant, what happens? The joy you once felt for your own life starts to fade. Suddenly, what was enough yesterday feels small today, all because you measured it against someone else's story. But comparison doesn't only steal joy in one direction. It works the other way, too. Sometimes we see someone with less than us, and instead of gratitude, we feel a subtle sense of pride. We think, at least I'm doing better than them. But that pride is another chain. It traps us in a cycle where our sense of value is always dependent on where we stand against others. The Buddha taught that both forms of comparison, envy of those above us, and pride over those below us, are forms of bondage. They keep the mind restless, always looking outward, always calculating. And when we are caught in that cycle, we lose sight of the truth. Life is not a race, and each of us has our own unique path. Here's the irony: comparison makes no one truly happy. The person who envies feels small. The person who feels superior becomes arrogant. Both are disconnected from genuine contentment. True peace comes only when we stop measuring our lives against others and begin to live from within. I remember speaking with a woman who seemed to have it all: a beautiful home, financial security, even the admiration of her community. But privately, she confessed that she felt miserable. "I can't stop comparing myself to my sister," she said. "No matter how much I achieve, she always seems to have more." Her wealth couldn't protect her from envy. And on the flip side, I've met people with very little, who radiate joy simply because they refuse to measure their happiness by someone else's yardstick. So here's a question to reflect on: what would your life feel like if you stopped comparing altogether? If you could look at someone else's success without feeling smaller, or see someone else's struggle without feeling superior. Imagine the freedom of living a life guided not by envy or pride, but by your own values and inner peace. Comparison is like running a race that has no finish line. No matter how far you go, someone will always be ahead, and someone will always be behind. But when you step off that track and realize that your journey is yours alone, you begin to taste real freedom. So the invitation is simple: celebrate others without losing yourself. Be grateful for what you have without feeling the need to rank it. Because happiness doesn't come from being richer than someone else, or from being admired more. It comes from contentment, compassion, and living your truth. When you let go of comparison, you also let go of envy and pride. And in that letting go, you create the space for a deeper joy, one that no one else can give you, and no one else can take away. Fear of loss. Have you ever noticed that sometimes, the more we have, the more fragile we feel? When we finally earn a certain amount of money, instead of breathing easy, our hearts tighten. A voice inside whispers, "What if I lose it? What if everything I've built disappears?" This quiet fear begins to grow, and suddenly the joy of gaining wealth is overshadowed by the anxiety of protecting it. It's a paradox of life. Poverty is painful, but wealth can carry its own invisible chains. When we don't have much, we dream of freedom. But when we do have something, our energy shifts toward guarding it. Think of someone who buys a brand new car. At first, there's pure excitement. But soon, every scratch in the parking lot, every dent, every possibility of theft becomes a source of stress. The very thing that was supposed to bring happiness now plants seeds of fear. Buddhist wisdom points out that this fear doesn't actually come from the money itself. It comes from our attachment, our clinging. The moment we grasp something too tightly, we give it the power to control our peace of mind. And that's why fear of loss often feels heavier than the burden of lacking. Because poverty may leave us with longing, but attachment makes us live with constant anxiety. So here's a question for you. Is there something in your life right now that you hold so tightly, it causes you more worry than joy? It could be money, but it could also be your reputation, your status, or even a relationship. This doesn't mean we shouldn't care about what we love, it means we need to loosen the grip, to hold with open hands. One of the greatest freedoms comes from understanding that nothing in this world is permanent. Wealth can be lost, but so can health, youth, opportunities, even the people we love. At first, this truth feels frightening. But when we embrace it, it actually becomes liberating. Because if we can accept impermanence, we stop living in fear of losing, and start living in gratitude for what we have, here and now. I once heard a wise saying, "The poor man suffers because he has nothing, the rich man suffers because he's afraid of losing everything. But the wise man suffers less, because he sees that nothing ever truly belongs to him." That's the heart of freedom, living fully without clinging. So, what if we approached wealth differently? What if, instead of obsessing over keeping it forever, we saw it as a river flowing through our lives? Money comes, money goes. Our job is not to chain it down, but to let it serve a purpose, to support our life, to help others, to create meaning. When we stop clutching at it like it's the foundation of our happiness, we finally breathe easier. The truth is, fear of loss steals more joy than actual loss ever could. Because while real loss may come once, fear makes us relive it 1,000 times in our minds. The antidote is simple but profound: loosen your grip, trust the flow of life, and remember that your true wealth is not in what you protect, but in the peace you carry within. Money cannot buy peace. We live in a world where money seems to solve almost everything. It can buy a house, a car, a vacation to the most beautiful places on earth. It can even pay for the best doctors, the most expensive treatments, or surround us with people who seem like friends. But have you noticed, there are still things money can never touch? You can buy a house, but not a home filled with warmth and love. You can pay for medicine, but not guarantee lasting health. You can attract company with wealth, but you cannot purchase genuine affection, loyalty, or compassion. And most of all, you cannot buy peace of mind. Think about it. How many wealthy people do you know of, maybe celebrities, billionaires, even successful business owners, who still struggle with anxiety, sleepless nights, and broken relationships? They have all the resources in the world, yet their hearts are restless. This shows us something profound: money can take care of the body, but not the soul. The Buddha once taught that true peace is not found in possessions, but in the mind that knows contentment. When the mind is calm, even a simple meal feels like a feast. But when the mind is restless, even a palace feels like a prison. Let me ask you this: have you ever achieved something you longed for, maybe a new job, a new car, or a big financial goal, only to realize that the happiness didn't last as long as you thought? The thrill fades, doesn't it? That's because outer success cannot fill an inner emptiness. We try to quiet the noise within with more purchases, more experiences, more wealth, but the silence we are looking for comes only from inside. And here's a personal reflection. I once met a man who owned 3 houses, but every night he wandered the streets, unable to sleep. He told me, "I thought if I just made more money, I'd finally feel safe. But the more I made, the more afraid I became of losing it." His story is not unique. Many people discover too late that peace doesn't come from adding more, but from letting go. The truth is, money is a tool. It's powerful, yes, but it's limited. It can provide comfort, but it cannot give us the kind of security that comes from a free and fearless heart. Peace is not for sale, it is cultivated through gratitude, compassion, and mindfulness. So maybe the real question isn't, how much money do I have, but am I at peace with myself? Because the richest life is not the one with the biggest bank account, it's the one where you wake up without fear, live with kindness, and rest with a quiet heart at night. Money can buy pleasure, but it cannot buy joy. It can buy comfort, but not contentment. And if we can see this clearly, we stop chasing peace in the wrong places and start nurturing it where it has always been, within us. Desire leads to conflict. Have you ever noticed how often money sits at the center of human conflict? Families break apart over inheritance. Friendships collapse over loans never repaid. Even nations go to war over resources and wealth. At the root of so much suffering lies not money itself, but the craving for it, the endless desire that turns people against each other. History gives us countless examples. Wars have been fought over gold, oil, land, and power. But if we look deeper, what really fuels these battles is human greed. It's the same greed that can creep into our own daily lives, maybe not on a global scale, but in the small arguments, betrayals, and jealousies we experience. Think about how many families have been torn apart after a parent passes away and children fight over property. Instead of grief uniting them, desire divides them. The very thing they hoped would make life more secure becomes the reason they lose their peace, their trust, and sometimes even their relationships. Isn't it ironic? Buddhist teachings remind us that craving, what the Buddha called tan, or thirst, is like fire. Once ignited, it spreads quickly and consumes everything in its path. When desire grows unchecked, it doesn't just burn inside us, it burns the bonds between us and others. That's why people lie, cheat, or even harm one another in the pursuit of wealth or status. I remember speaking with a man who lost a lifelong friend because of business. He told me, "We started with a dream, but somewhere along the way, money became more important than the friendship." You could see the pain in his eyes. He didn't just lose money, he lost trust, love, and a part of himself. And sadly, his story is far from rare. Here's something to reflect on: how many of our conflicts, big or small, would disappear if desire wasn't pulling the strings? If we truly understood that peace is more valuable than profit, how different would our choices be? Of course, this doesn't mean we reject money or success. It means we see clearly that when desire hardens into obsession, it turns relationships into battlefields. Instead of being a tool to support life, money becomes a weapon that divides it. The Buddha's wisdom offers us a way out: cultivate generosity instead of greed, compassion instead of competition. When we loosen the grip of craving, conflicts lose their fuel. When we learn to share rather than hoard, we create bonds instead of breaking them. At the end of the day, what do we really want? Is it more possessions, or is it harmony? Is it wealth at any cost, or the kind of life where we can look into another person's eyes without guilt, fear, or resentment? Because here's the truth: money might buy power, but it cannot buy peace. And no matter how high you climb on the ladder of wealth, if you had to step on others to get there, the view will never truly be beautiful. The path of letting go. Have you ever noticed that the more we cling, the heavier life feels? It's as if we are carrying a bag filled with stones. Every desire, every craving, every "I must have this" adds another rock to the load. We think holding on makes us safer, but in reality, it only makes the journey harder. The Buddha's wisdom points us toward a different path, the path of letting go. This doesn't mean giving up everything or rejecting the world. It means loosening the tight grip of desire. It means learning to live with enough, instead of chasing more without end. Think about a time when you finally decided to let something go: a relationship that no longer served you, an object you didn't really need, or even a worry that had been eating away at your peace. Do you remember that feeling of lightness? That quiet relief that came not from gaining something, but from releasing it. That is the beginning of true freedom. Society often tells us that happiness comes from accumulation: a bigger house, a newer car, a fatter bank account. But here's the paradox: every time we achieve one goal, another pops up. The hunger never ends. Letting go breaks this cycle. It teaches us that joy is not in the next achievement, but in appreciating what is already here. There's a story of a monk who carried a single bowl. When asked why he lived with so little, he smiled and said, "The less I carry, the freer I am." While we may not live like monks, there's wisdom in that simplicity. When we let go of constant wanting, space opens up for peace, for love, for connection. I remember speaking with a woman who spent years climbing the corporate ladder. She confessed that no promotion ever truly satisfied her. It was only when she started practicing gratitude, truly savoring her morning coffee, cherishing the laughter of her children, that she discovered a joy she had been missing all along. She didn't abandon her work or her responsibilities, but she shifted her perspective. Instead of being trapped by endless desire, she found peace in the present. Here's a question worth asking: what are we holding onto right now that is keeping us from peace? Is it the idea that we must earn a certain amount before we can rest? Is it the belief that happiness will come only when we finally arrive somewhere else? Letting go is not about losing, it's about gaining space for what truly matters. When we put down the heavy stones of craving, our hands and hearts are finally free to hold the things that bring real fulfillment, kindness, compassion, contentment, and love. The path of letting go is not always easy. It asks us to trust, to live with openness instead of control. But in that trust lies the doorway to peace. As long as we cling, we suffer. When we release, we discover a freedom that money could never buy. So maybe the question is not what more can I get, but what can I let go of today? Because every time we release a little craving, we take one step closer to the quiet joy of true contentment. True wealth. What does it really mean to be wealthy? Most people would answer with numbers: how much money you have in your bank account, how many properties you own, or how expensive your lifestyle is. But if you pause for a moment and look deeper, you'll see something surprising. True wealth has very little to do with possessions. It has everything to do with the state of your heart. Imagine two people. One has millions of dollars, but is constantly restless, worried, and afraid of losing it all. The other lives modestly, but wakes up every morning with gratitude, content with what they have, and at peace with themselves. Now ask yourself, who is truly richer? The Buddha taught that wealth is not about having more, it's about needing less. A heart that knows contentment is already full, while a heart that is never satisfied will always feel poor, no matter how much it gains. In fact, this is the secret that kings and billionaires often miss. They chase endlessly for more, but in the process, they live as beggars of desire, always hungry, never complete. I remember meeting a man who had retired after decades of hard work. He wasn't a millionaire. He didn't live in a mansion. But he told me, I feel rich because I have enough. I have food on the table, time with my grandchildren, and peace in my heart. You could see it in his smile. He carried a kind of wealth that no stock market crash could ever take away. Let me ask you this: when was the last time you felt genuinely content, without wishing for something else? That moment, whether it was sipping your morning coffee, laughing with a friend, or simply sitting in silence, that is true wealth. It's not the size of your possessions, but the size of your gratitude that makes you rich. Society often defines success in terms of more money, more status, more achievements. But what if success was actually the ability to say, this is enough? What if being wealthy was less about accumulation and more about appreciation? Think about the stress so many of us carry because of comparison. We look at what others have and feel small. But here's the truth: if you measure wealth by comparison, you'll never win. There will always be someone with more. But if you measure wealth by your ability to be at peace, then no one can take it from you. The real richness of life is found in things money cannot buy: peace of mind, health, kindness, love, and wisdom. These treasures don't fluctuate with the economy. They don't disappear when the stock market drops. They only grow when we nurture them. So perhaps the richest person is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. And maybe the true question isn't, how much do I own, but how much peace do I carry in my heart? Because at the end of the day, a full bank account with an empty heart is poverty. But a grateful heart, even with little, is already wealth beyond measure. Happiness from within. Have you ever noticed how often we connect happiness with something outside of us: money, success, or the approval of others? We are told that if we earn more, achieve more, or buy more, then joy will follow. And yet, so many people who have it all still confess to feeling empty, restless, or dissatisfied. Why is that? The truth is, happiness isn't a prize waiting for us at the end of a race. It isn't locked inside a paycheck or hidden in a new car. Happiness, real and lasting, is born within. It grows quietly in the soil of a peaceful mind, a compassionate heart, and the wisdom to see life as it truly is. Think about it this way. Imagine holding a glass of muddy water. No matter how much sugar or honey you add, it still tastes unclean. That's like trying to sweeten life only with money or possessions. But if you set the glass down, let the mud settle, the water becomes clear. In the same way, when the mind rests, when we learn to breathe and let go, clarity and peace begin to rise naturally. That is where happiness truly begins. So, what creates this inner happiness? First, a calm mind. When our thoughts are constantly chasing after what's next, we miss the beauty of what's already here. Silence, stillness, and mindfulness help us return home to the present moment, where joy is always waiting. Second, compassion. When we soften our hearts toward others, when we choose kindness over judgment, a subtle warmth fills us, a happiness that no amount of wealth can purchase. And third, wisdom. With wisdom, we see that life is impermanent. Chasing endlessly after what will one day fade only traps us in suffering. But when we accept change and flow with it, we taste freedom. Let me ask you, have you ever felt a moment of simple happiness, watching the sunset, sharing a laugh with a friend, or holding the hand of someone you love? That happiness didn't come from money. It came from presence, connection, and the opening of your heart. These moments remind us that joy is not far away, it's always here, waiting to be noticed. Of course, money has its place. It provides comfort, security, and opportunities. But it was never designed to give us meaning. Meaning comes when we live aligned with our deepest values, when we nurture peace inside, and when we share love outward. Money can buy a bed, but it cannot buy sleep. It can buy medicine, but it cannot buy health. It can buy entertainment, but it cannot buy peace of mind. Happiness from within is not a mysterious secret. It's a practice. Every time you pause, breathe deeply, forgive instead of holding on, or choose gratitude over complaint, you water the seeds of inner happiness. And the more you water these seeds, the stronger and more radiant your joy becomes. So perhaps the question is not, how much money do I need to be happy, but rather, how deeply can I rest in my own heart, right now? When we realize that happiness is not something to chase, but something to uncover, we become free. Free to live with simplicity, with compassion, and with wisdom. And in that freedom, we discover the happiness we've been seeking all along. Closing, true wealth lies within. My dear friends, let us pause for a moment and reflect. Money, yes, it is powerful. It pays the bills, puts food on the table, keeps a roof over our heads. It is a tool, a resource, a means of exchange in this vast human world we share. But money was never meant to be the ultimate goal of life. It was never designed to carry the full weight of our happiness. Have you noticed how easily money can shift from being a helpful servant to becoming a demanding master? When desire takes over, when craving and attachment whisper in our ears, money stops being freedom and starts becoming a chain. We run after it, chase it endlessly, and the more we cling, the more restless we become. It's like drinking salt water, the thirst only grows. So, let me ask you, what is it that you truly seek? Is it the number in your bank account? Or is it the peace you hope that number will bring? Is it the car, the house, the luxury? Or is it the sense of safety, love, and contentment you hope those things will deliver? If it's the latter, then here lies the wisdom. Safety, love, and contentment cannot be bought. They must be cultivated within. A wise person once said, use money, but do not let money use you. Think about that. Money is a tool to nourish the body, to support our families, to create opportunities, and to extend kindness to those in need. But if we let greed or fear dictate our relationship with money, it becomes a prison. True freedom arises when we can look at money with calm eyes, use it with compassion, and never mistake it for our soul's purpose. The deepest joy comes not from accumulation, but from alignment. From knowing that we are living in tune with our values, from being able to rest at night with a quiet heart. Happiness blooms when we practice generosity, when our resources, no matter how small, are shared to uplift another life. Have you ever noticed that the joy of giving lingers longer than the thrill of buying? That moment of connection, of knowing you lighten someone else's load, is the kind of wealth that multiplies without limits. So, my friends, remember this: money can buy medicine, but not health. It can buy comfort, but not peace. It can buy pleasures, but not love. The treasure that no thief can steal, no market can trade, and no inflation can diminish is the treasure of an awakened heart. When craving softens, when attachment loosens, suffering dissolves. What remains is a life that feels whole, a life that feels enough. And perhaps that's the greatest secret: this very moment, right here, is already complete. You do not need to chase endlessly after more to deserve happiness. You need only to turn inward, to quiet the storms of desire, and to see with fresh eyes that life, as it is, already holds the miracle. So as you step forward from today, carry this truth with you: let money serve you, not enslave you. Let your heart remain light, generous, and free. For the only lasting happiness is found not in wealth, but in inner peace. And when you rest in that peace, you will see, the world, just as it is, has always been enough.